I'm James. I'm 17, and I'm pretty sure I'm a psychopath.
This is my first video essay, and I suppose you could call it a kind of experiment. I already run one YouTube channel that hosts laughable excuses of gaming content, but that's mostly for comedy, and is more so a hobby than anything. I want to use this channel to just kind of air my thoughts, like a solo podcast, since I have no friends to do a real one. Recently I completed the Netflix series The End of the Fucking World, and I fell in love with it. Yeah, it wasn't necessarily inspiration for this channel. I thought it'd be a good starter for this experiment since my passion for the series is still fresh in my mind. The End of the Fucking World is a British comedy drama based on a graphic novel of the same name made by Charles Forstmann. Its comedy mainly centralizes around the dark and satirical brand of humor which I am exceptionally fond of. That said, I will try to keep that point the only biased thing about this video, since there is no set of rules dictating what is and isn't funny. It might not be your thing, but excuse me if I think a teenage girl being led to a supposed death while inner monologuing about how safe and happy she feels with her soon-to-be murderer is deserving of a chuckle or two. Oh, and by the way, there will be spoilers ahead, but that wasn't one of them. The trailer tells us the whole premise is based around a teenage boy who thinks he's a psychopath and wants to kill a human instead of animals, and targets a girl who thinks she has a crush on him. This what intrigued me in the first place, but onto the reasons why I love the show. Number 1, it's ridiculously faithful to the novel. I will admit, I haven't fully read the original graphic novel, but I have researched for a few things it includes that the show doesn't, and vice versa. And considering we live in a current state of cinema which is churning out a new comic book movie every couple of months, I believe showing respect to the original material helps a show or movie feel more authentic, respectful and charming. It feels like it's made with love. Ironic considering the show centralizes around quite possibly the bitchiest teenage girl I've ever seen on silver screen, and a stone-faced murderer. I believe the show found a nice blend of original content as well, including only a couple of scenes not included in the novel, and only changing small details for budget purposes and convenience sake. Certainly nothing that would take away from any of the impact or plot points the original novel had. Even the way it's shot and constructed copies the comics. I would estimate 75% of the show is made of center shots, with only one character's face on screen at a time. This is because a lot of the conversations are quite blunt and emotionless at surface level, which leads the writing to rely more on body language and actions to show feelings. But if you examine the comic, you can also find similarities. Panels that feature impactful moments usually feature one singular close-up of one singular character showing their one singular reaction to an event, and this is mirrored in the show. It works so well despite being nearly completely torn from an entirely different format. 2. It features a very niche cast. After seeing Alex Lawther's portrayal of the protagonist, James, I've grown a fondness for the actor. Even though he was awarded Young British Performer of the Year by the BFI in 2014, he's still relatively up and coming, and I hope to see more of him in the future. Because the entire show is pretty bleak and not at all for the faint of heart, having a star-studded cast would have sacrificed much of the show's nuance and feel. I feel as though one of Jessica Barden's lines as Alyssa sums up what I mean perfectly. If this was a film, we'd probably be American. The entire show is shot in the UK, in quite suburban areas in Surrey. Look it up. And this line is not only comedic in the sense that it's a TV show, accompanied by the ironic explosion of the car seconds later, but it's also pointing out the mood that they're attempting to create. The series tackles very serious subject matter in its dark humor and packs surprisingly emotional punches. The series is saying this is real life. It's not a fantasized movie where everything goes right and everyone's American and Brad Pitt plays the lead, saving a pretty face like Scarlett Johansson. The series is meant to show how truly shit the world can be. In fact, looking back, I don't recall a single character who actually ends the series better off. It's pretty shit for everyone involved, to be honest, and the niche cast helps to sell this aura. What I'm trying to say is, it's less the unfamous cast, but the various elements it uses to make the series seem real and impactful, cementing it in reality. 3. Like I said, it sucks for everyone. It's very rare that the antagonist of a story wins, which is why it's refreshing to see a form of media when they do. Maybe this is somewhat biased too since I love a good villain, but you cannot deny whenever you see the protagonist you've supported so faithfully lose, you are shocked to see them meet their demise and failure. Well, what's even rarer than that? A story where nobody really wins. Not the antagonist, the protagonist, or anybody in between. While it may be much too dark for some people, I don't think the series really gives a toss. I'm surprised the curse in the title is even censored considering the content of the show. To watch a show about a psychopath trying to kill his teenage girlfriend, you should probably have mentally prepared yourself beforehand anyway, but without reading the novel, it's very unlikely you saw the ending coming. After driving the point home that this series is meant to be as painstakingly real as possible, it hits even harder by stating this isn't a fairy tale, there are no happy endings, sincerely, producers, PS, get fucked. It's emotional. 4. The character development. Dear Lord, if I had to pick one singular reason this series is a masterpiece and doesn't need a fucking sequel, it's probably this. I've already mentioned how lacking in star power the cast is, but that by no means constitutes a bad cast. I can't spot a single substandard performance in the entire show. Considering that the two leads, especially James, have some of the biggest character arcs I've ever seen, this is no small feat. To transfer from a stone-faced and emotionless psychopath into an emotional wreck who's suddenly dealing with repressed memories, being a murderer on the run who finally cares for someone for the first time in a decade is quite a leap. I can't imagine the differences in acting exercises Alex Lawther had to go through for each scene. If I had to choose a scene that highlights how beautiful the writing is in this aspect, it would have to be when James attempted to put a dog out of its misery after it was run over. It's such a small and seemingly pointless scene. It doesn't contain any influential plot points or introduce any characters, but perfectly highlights James's transition from the start of the series into his current state of mind. He used to kill animals without a second thought, counting and collecting their corpses in a sadistic and emotionless manner. Now he's faced with the task of doing the same, but for once with moral intention, and he can't bring himself to do it, breaking down into tears and retreating to Alyssa's arms. There are so many instances that I can provide of not just James, but many other characters' periods of change, but it turned this video into nothing but a love letter, so on to the next and final point. 5. It's so damn British. Seems like that bias thing went out the window pretty quick. British TV is something of American envy lately, constantly being turned into terrible recreations for the land of the free's enjoyment. Seriously, have you seen American Inbetweeners? But this series does extremely little to attempt to appeal to anything other than British audiences. Obviously this doesn't mean only British people can enjoy it. I believe anybody can enjoy the show, given they're not faint of heart. Having said this, there are certain things you simply won't get out of it that a Brit would. For example, the slang, the locations, the bleak colours, the terrible weather, the local cast. Yes, I know I said it added to the aura given you don't recognise the characters, but for fans of British television, it's possible you may witness some memorable faces. While it might slightly ruin the illusion, it blankets over it with more realism by using British faces for a British show. There are a lot of reasons I love this show, not all of which are listed. If this show does relatively well, I would have no trouble making a part 2, or doing it with other series or movies or animated series or whatever. Thank you for listening to me fucking fumble over my opinions at you for a few minutes. Why not do the same to me in the comments? Before I end this video by whoring myself out for likes and subs though, I'd like to first beg the producers of this show not to make a sequel. It will no doubt ruin the show. The novel does continue for longer than the show, but only for about 5 pages. Nowhere near enough for another episode, let alone an entirely new season. The ending was so brutally dark and blunt, I have no idea what they'd use as source material or if it'd be original content or what characters it would follow, but the thought of it tainting the name sent shudders down my spine. So please let it die, along with a quarter of their characters. 2. It features a very nice dickhead. Emotionless psychopath into an emotional wreck. I'm an emotional wreck. And he can't bring himself to do it, breaking down into tears and retreating into